she claimed many other, I think, children and grandchildren. Some of you know me by my birth name, which was Susan. I have transitioned to Stephen, which I chose because it was Granny's father's name. And I never came out to my granny as Stephen. I never told her that, which you may think, how did that happen? You have a beard. And, you know, it worked. We figured it out, and on some level, she knew. She was an incredibly perceptive, intelligent person. And so, what I want to just say is that my Granny June was just the epitome of an exceptional person in so many different ways. And yeah. So what we're going to do is, this is my wife, Heather, and she was a huge fan of Granny June, and Granny June was a huge fan of hers. They share many similarities, which my mother often likes to point out to me. This is one of my best friends, Carter Sickles. He is he's a writer, and when Carter and I went to grad school, both went to grad school at UNC Chapel Hill and became friends there, and he made a trip home with me to Johnson City one time to see where I was from and really expressly to meet Granny June, right? Because she was a legend and all of my friends wanted to meet her. And so during that trip, Carter wrote a story that's called Johnson City that was later published, and we're going to read part of that story for you. And I think Carter does an absolutely beautiful job of capturing Granny and me, and I think you'll recognize lots of sort of nuances about my grandmother. So Carter drove down from Kentucky today. He teaches at Eastern Kentucky University to be here to help me read this, and so I'm really grateful for that. He's going to read the narrative part, I'm going to read my part, and appropriately Heather is going to read Granny June's part. So I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah, as Stephen said, I only met Granny June, I guess, a couple times. Mm-hmm. But it was a joy to meet her. She left quite an impression. Okay. In the morning, Steve and I went to pick up his grandmother to take her back to his parents' house for brunch. Both of us were still waking up, Stephen with a big cup of sweet tea, me with coffee. His grandmother lived on the other side of town, about a 15-minute drive from his parents. The White House with rose-colored shutters sat on a corner of two quiet streets. She had been living there alone since her second husband, the only granddaddy that Stephen knew, died 25 years ago. Curtains and drapes blocked all the windows. You sure she's up?
She just doesn't like people looking in.
Stephen raised his eyebrows, made his voice high like Granny's.
You can never be too careful.
Stephen rang the bell. His grandmother was expecting Stephen's father. After a few minutes, he heard footsteps, fussing with the locks.
Hold on.
The door opened a crack, then wider. Granny's wrinkled face broke out into a smile that showed all her yellowing teeth.
My Lord, what in the world are you doing here?
Laughing, Granny pulled Stephen to her. He stood a head taller than her, her old knobby bent fingers pressed into the middle of his back like they were a part of his spine.
Surprise?
Well, no, I had a feeling.
She gazed at him like he hadn't changed a bit. The three of us stood in the entryway to the house on a little plastic runner that protected the ivory carpeting from dirt. Granny looking at Stephen like she couldn't tear her eyes away. I wondered what she saw. I'd expected him to wear layers to hide in his clothes, maybe a baggy sweatshirt, but he had on a flannel that drew tight against his flat chest. Granny didn't want to look away from her grandchild, but she was also curious about the stranger in her house.
Hi, honey.
Her voice was warm and throaty, the smoker's voice, except that she had never smoked. Granny grew up Methodist, then converted to Baptist. Stephen said she wasn't religious in a scary way, though.
She's just really spiritual.
Granny fit her bony hand in mine. Her skin was tissue soft, the way old people's often is. All my grandparents were dead, and I miss them.
It's so good to meet you.
Next to Stephen, Granny seemed small, but she was not a tiny woman. If she could have stood straight, she would have been around 5'6", but her back was hunched, which made her head stretch out like a turtle's. She had a long, pretty face with prominent cheekbones and a strong jaw, a face that turned heads in her day.
You from North Carolina?
Ohio, I said. She asked if I knew the Beasleys. I said I didn't. She asked what my grandparents' last names were, where they had lived. She wanted to know who my people were.
Granny, you can find all that out later. You ready?
Not yet. I'm having a hard time getting around. Look here, did your mama tell you I broke my toes?
How did you manage to do one on each foot?
Who knows? These things are slowing me down.
Granny pointed to the bulky orthopedic sandals on her feet.
And look how ugly.
Oh, they're not so bad, Granny.
Oh, yes, they are.
Granny was dressed in black slacks and a lavender blouse, and I had the feeling she was the kind of lady who never wore sneakers or jeans. Stephen tried to lighten the situation.
You like my shoes?
We glanced down at his worn-out blue Nikes.
No, I don't like them.
His grandmother also didn't like his hair.
I don't know why you have to wear it so short.
Stephen told her we had to go. His mother had lunch waiting.
I've got to fix my face first. You two come in here and keep me company.
In the hallway, I stopped to look at the framed photographs covering nearly every inch of the wall. Pictures of Stephen, relatives, friends. Family shots probably taken for church directories or Christmas cards. Husband in a suit, wife in a dress, a couple of kids with their hair combed and faces scrubbed. One family looked vaguely familiar. Is that? I looked at Stephen. He was laughing. Does she know the Gores?
No. Not personally, but she's a big fan of Al's.
The photograph was from the 90s. The daughters and Tipper were smiling, and Al looked fresh-faced and presidential.
The Clintons are up there too.
Right above a photograph of Stephen and his parents was one of Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea. I also saw Jimmy Carter and his family.
She'll put a picture of the Obamas up there too. She stayed up all night watching the election. She was so excited.
While Stephen and I sat on the edge of Granny's neatly made bed, she fluffed her white hair, sprayed her neck with heady perfume. I imagined Stephen had spent a lot of time in here watching her fix her face, and wondered if anything about the room had changed over the years. Angel figurines and pastel pinks and lilacs set on a dainty shelf, a bouquet of red silk carnations, bottles of pills, a box of tissues, lacy white curtains in the windows like giant wings. Stephen was her only grandchild, and there were pictures of him everywhere. Baby pictures, school pictures, same blue eyes, same smile. One of him with his honey brown hair falling to his shoulders, folded hand propped under his chin. And another picture, maybe age 4 or 5, he had pretty pink bows in his hair.
I was prissy. I had some lovely bows.
I asked him if I could take some photographs.
Go ahead, she won't care.
Granny was too busy applying dark, respectable lipstick. She fussed with a brooch, but her fingers were too bent, so Stephen pinned it to her blouse. He was gentle and careful with her. He helped her pick out a sweater, which took a while, since everything he pulled out from the closet, Granny didn't like. After she settled on a cardigan, she had to choose a scarf. She wrapped a green chiffon one around her neck.
You like this one or the purple one better?
The purple one.
She looked doubtful.
Maybe.
Then she noticed my camera. I'd already taken some shots of her and Stephen.
Can you make a picture?
Stephen leaned down so his face was even with his grandmother's, and both of them smiled, old and young faces, female and male.